Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason on this Friday. Buckle up, baby. It is going to get nasty all over the country. One of the football games in Arrowhead, it's going to be negative, I want to say right now, -7. Probably going to feel like -20. It is so cold in Colorado that our transmitter locked up. We're thawing it out. Well, we're back up and on there, but we had to thaw it out. Again, hey, support us. We've got that new funding approved for a brand new transmitter. We've got a brand new building that will help. You know, it's a whole lot more secure and a lot warmer than where the old transmitter sits. So if you can feel it in your heart, for $100, you can get one of our coins. We got a Patriot Trading Group coin. The coin by itself $75. We've got a half-empty cup of Joe Pure Blood 2023 coin. I will say this: that Pure Blood coin, there's not a lot of those left, and we are not making any more. So if you want one of those, you can buy the coins. They're both $75. But if you want to make it $100, we throw in a T-shirt, a KHNC T-shirt, a bumper sticker, and if you give us your email, you'll get a monthly newsletter from the radio station. We're so close, and once we complete this fundraising round, we'll be ready to go and get this new transmitter, which goes into our new building, which it can be -20 or -50. Is that what I'm reading, Jason? Wind chills.
So the eastern plains of Colorado is going to be colder than right there alongside the mountains, and the further east you go, the worse the wind chills over the weekend. So today is not very cold. So it's kind of disturbing to hear about the freezing you're talking about at the site, because Saturday and Sunday is by far way worse than what we've dealt with. So hopefully you've got a plan for that, because wind chills of -20 is not going to be good.
We're trying to strategize. We've already. I don't mean to laugh, but we've already ruled out putting the heater in there, because I'm worried we'll burn the whole place down. The old transmitter unit, it's an old truck bed. It's been out in the elements now for the better part of 3 decades plus. So we definitely got to get all of this stuff done. But we'll come up with something. We're going to get creative out there, and then and I don't pay enough attention. Readily, the football stuff. I kind of casually watch the Cardinals because, I'm an Arizona guy. And I did not know this year that some of the games you had to pay to watch. And the Chiefs game, which I think is going to set a new all-time record low for a football game, you have to pay for. You got to have this Peacock app to pay for it. So now, this is how bad it's gotten, guys, right? It's one thing, remember, you go to a game and it used to be reasonable. A football ticket, I don't care where you sit, it's not reasonable, okay? The prices are outrageous. Even if you're sitting in the upper decks, you're still paying a good amount. Heaven forbid you want to sit in the lower deck. But now you're telling me, we want you to pay for it, even if you're sitting at home in your living room.
It just tells me a little bit that viewership might be dropping a little bit in the NFL, and so if you can sell it, you sell it, right, Joe? So, boxing got kind of more popular with pay-per-view, but I remember, and I wasn't alive for a lot of it, but boxing was really, really, especially the heavyweights, were big in the 70s, when you could just turn it on Sunday or whatever and watch Muhammad Ali fight, right? And it never really regained that sort of prestige when it became pay for it. So it seems like the NFL is circling that proverbial drain. This is the future, I guess, Joe. Yeah, pay for the playoffs. Pay for the playoffs. You know what? And a lot of people are going to.
Yeah, well, the sports guys were talking about it when I was driving in this morning. They're like, it's only $6. I think they said $6. Well, it's just $6, and then I guess for a month And then you just cancel it after the playoff. It's just $6. And I'm like, $6, come on. Right? I think you're right. I think it's a mistake. I think you're going to lose viewers, right? Look at me, the casual fan. I will tell you this. I am not paying $6. I'm not going to do it. You know what? I bet you this. I'll have to check in with my friends. I bet you a lot of the bar guys are going to be happy about that. They'll get better crowds to come and watch.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure someone's going to make some money, and it's very popular. It's a great way to pass time. But I don't see. I remember growing up, it was always ABC's Monday Night Football. I used to love it. Who even watches Monday Night Football? I don't even know how people even watch it, and I know football's super popular. I still catch myself like a bad habit. I'm always checking and seeing how the Rams are doing, even though I don't really root for them. I've been kind of excited that they turned the season around and got in the playoffs. So it's like I said, it's like a bad drug habit or something. I can't cut it off completely.
You just can't quit it. You can't quit me.
But my apathy, I definitely don't have the care for it. So
800-951-0592. That's our toll-free number. AllAmericanGold.com is the website. A massive move in gold and silver. And, of course, I told you on Wednesday, hey, you better buy it now. And you know what? The reason I gave was totally wrong. Totally wrong. But yet today, I get to come back and say, see, I told you so. I'll tell you all about it. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Friday. Quick look at the markets. The Dow's down 185. The S&P's down fractionally. The Nasdaq's still up for now, up 14 points. The 10-year note, 396. So squarely back below 4%. Crude oil's up. A tax in Yemen by the United States. Is this war getting ready to expand? Let's hope not. Gold and silver flying. And it started yesterday. So right now, I'll tell you, in New York, gold's up $38, 2,057. Kitco's probably got it up, I don't know, like 20, something like that, because huge deficit numbers reported by the government yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute. Silver's up 80 cents, $23.50. We had all the major banks, all four major banks, Wells, J.P. Morgan, Citi, B of A, all reporting today, and it wasn't pretty. Let's just say it wasn't pretty. Volatility is the name of the game. 2024, I think, is going to be a very crazy market. That's why taking some of your hard-earned money and looking at something like refi, up to 10.25% return fixed. What does that mean? Doesn't change. It's the same every single month. You turn your income on. You can turn it off. You can compound it. You can do whatever the heck you want. And here's the best part. It's not correlated to Wall Street. It doesn't care that the bank's earnings were bad. They don't care about a tax in Yemen, right? It's going to be the same month after month, year after year. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Remember, you got to have a minimum of $50,000. That is the minimum. You can use an existing IRA. Some of you can use a 401k. There are no fees, and they made it even better now. Don't forget now, if you give them, you want to invest with them for 5 years, they give you the 10.25. They've raised the amounts for all the other, for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. You always got all of your principal back if you needed your money back early. Now they're going to let you keep some of that interest as well. So check it out, investYRefi.com, 888-YREFI24. So Jason, it started yesterday after in the after hours of the gold market. The federal government, and it's getting to the point of insanity. It really, truly is. We already know we're running these huge, huge deficits and now the problem is we're having a hard time selling all of the debt. The U.S. budget deficit soared 50% in December. And again, now they're talking about soft landing. Well, they come down, it's not bad. If we're going to spend this kind of money, I guess for a little while, it will work. They're saying that fiscal year 2023 ending with just over $2 trillion. So somebody actually finally figured out what they did. We already ran a $2 trillion budget deficit last year. 2024 is now shaping up to be far worse. And this is exactly what I've been telling you. For me, I'm just hoping that Jamie Dimon's wrong. Jamie Dimon, again, talking about bad things are coming in 2024. He's just not going to let it go. But neither here nor there. Jason, we're talking about these budget deficit numbers over $500 billion in the last quarter. Now, there's two quarters that are the worst quarters, and then there's 2 quarters that are the best. So second quarter's the best. Why is second quarter the best? As far as deficits go, as far as deficits being the least. And the answer is pretty simple, because that's when April falls, tax day. So the government gets a lot of tax revenue. So the second quarter, if you will, and really as far as fiscal terms go, that's the third quarter, April, May, June, that's always the lowest. The second lowest is usually the first quarter, which is October, November, December. Why? Because there's a lot of businesses that elect to pay in October instead of April. So that's the second biggest chance to get tax revenue, and then usually the second and fourth quarters are the bad ones. We just hit over $500 billion in a good quarter, Jason.
Yeah, well, and taxes played a big role in that, but I mean, let's face it, the things don't get paid by the taxes. They haven't been paid by the taxes in a long time. It's all about the spending, Joe. I mean, yes, the reason we don't talk about tax income for the federal government is because it really is the small end. When the government really needs it, they borrow it, and the Fed prints it. So, but well taken that, hey, the second and fourth quarters are going to be weaker quarters. We're heading into that. And so these numbers that Jamie Dimon are talking about, this could be, where a recession could start. But, Joe, it's all about the spending. It's all about the printing and the spending and the printing and the spending. That's, and that I didn't even cover the CPI number yesterday, Joe, which they just can't quite get out of those threes, can they?
They couldn't get out. Yeah, believe it or not, so the CPI number was a little hotter than expected. Now we were talking about a lower number. That was rents were up. That was unexpected. But there was a lot of things there. Food costs, the new all-time record high. Today, producer prices was better. It was lower today. But it really started with, gold started moving with these deficit numbers. Year over year, tax receipts down 7.2%. Now that tells me we're looking at the less hiring, seasonal hiring than we did in 2022, right? So those FICA taxes and all that came down. And Wall Street had a great year last year. So, but right now it looks like, and it's the same pattern. Tax receipts down, spending up. The first quarter, $509 billion. The biggest deficit in U.S. history, with the exception of and the biggest deficit for the first quarter, with the exception of COVID 2021, and has surpassed all others. And we're looking at that 2021 budget deficit. That was that $3.2 trillion. How close to that are we going to get? And more importantly, how the heck are we going to finance all of it? And then we heard from all the banks today. I'll just go down the list. Wells Fargo, Credit loss provisions skyrocketing at Wells Fargo. That's not a surprise. This was one of those things, again, we wanted to look. Are they starting to get ready for more bad news in 2024? Wells Fargo, the answer was yes, primarily with credit cards and commercial real estate. J.P. Morgan, it was by far the best of the bunch. These guys, man, you talk about, they're so much bigger than everybody else. But listen to this number, charge-offs. So this isn't putting money in provision. This is, we just wrote it all off. Was up 100% from the previous quarter. So an idea of why is Jamie Dimon making some of these crazy statements? Well, this is why. He's like, look at my bank. Our charge-offs were up 100% in 90 days. But one of the things why J.P. Morgan is, because it really wasn't a great report, but why they're faring a little better than the rest today was the guidance that they gave for 2024. It looks like, and now somebody smarter than me was looking at their filings. J.P. Morgan is pricing in a lot more than 2 rate cuts. They're more into that 4 to 6 rate cuts. It was really interesting to see. Citigroup, the worst of the bunch. Of course, they warned ahead of time. They actually reported a $1.8 billion loss. So they actually lost money in the quarter. They're cutting 20,000 jobs. They also announced they're leaving the municipal bond market altogether. What does that tell you? Right? We've been talking a little bit about cities and states and the budget problems that they're facing. Excuse me, they took total losses of over $4.6 billion, which left them with a $1.8 billion loss. Bank of America increased its credit loss provisions. Last quarter, they only did $12 million. This quarter, $1.1 billion. So again, Jason, the banks are saying the bad stuff is coming.
Yeah, and like you said, Jamie Dimon's been saying it for a while. You've been saying that watch the banking sector, and I think 2023 basically told you watch the banking sector because we had the problems in March. So, you know, I did watch a couple of documentaries and some YouTube videos recently, and then they're pointing out that most likely, like we covered a couple of years ago in 2022, that it's very possible that there's printing, a lot of printing going on. And it's being fed into accounts that don't count in the official numbers, Joe. And that's why I think that the inflation just doesn't go away. And man, let's just see what happens in the banking sector if the inflation just keeps on going. Especially the lower the rate. Oh, we're going to lower the rates. We're going to save the markets. You know, the banks should be happy, right? But not if the inflation takes off. It really is. We're seeing what we talked about for several years now, which is that the Fed has no good play. They're trying to dance, and they've been dancing and dancing, but at some point something's going to come up and trip them up, I think.
Well, it's very interesting what Jamie Dimon had to say. 2024 is looking a whole lot like the 70s. It really... Well, that was a little shocking for me, but let me clarify that. Some of the developments that he was talking about, large fiscal deficits, right? So think about the 70s. When we started 1971, before we went off the gold standard completely, this is when the bubble era started, right? Gold finally got to allow to be traded freely. Because gold was stuck at $35, right? The government, when they confiscated gold in 1933 at $20, reset the price 90 days later at $35, made it illegal to own, and it sat there all the way till 1971. And then, of course, what happened? Gold took off. Now, Jamie Dimon says it's like the 70s. Gold went from $35 to $800. I am not saying that we're going to see that same type of percentage return. Let's hope not. Please, Lord, don't let that be true. You know, we got gold at up $41 now at 2,060. I don't even want to do, you know, that. Well, I'm gonna now. I said I'm not gonna do the math in my head. I got to get a calculator.
20x. It's about 20x to go $40.
Yeah, 23x. I mean, you're talking.
And gold really should have been 35. Let's just say 40, because gold really should have been higher than that 35. But 40 to 800, that's 20x.
Right, but that would have been $47,000 gold. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, let's hope it doesn't. The budget, the federal deficit, was only $400 billion in 1971. It got to $1 trillion by 1981. Right? So think about this. It almost doubled in that 10 years. Heck, we're going to double in less than that this time around. We'll be back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Friday. And what a Friday it has been. If you're just joining us, gold's up 40 right now, 2,060. Silver's up 80 cents. Got a huge sale today on $20 liberties. $20 liberties, $2,250. 20 or more, $2,240. So this is $2,250. That's what it was yesterday, and gold's up 40. You buy 20 or more, you're going to buy it for less than yesterday. $2,240 if you buy 20 or more at 800-951-0592. And Jason, Jamie Dimon comparing 2024 with the 70s right now. And it's an interesting thing because he gave his reason. One, large deficits. Look at where we're at. I mean, I don't know how we're going to sell it all. I truly don't. A new record outside of the one COVID year, we're going to be well above $2 trillion, on its way to $3 trillion. Then he said, changing trade flows. Now remember, that was big in this. Remember what Nixon did, right? He closed the gold window, right? And said, okay, you know, you foreign countries can't take dollars and buy gold for $35 anymore, right? This was a big trade flow change. Obviously, what is he talking about? Most likely BRICS, right? Sure seems that way, doesn't it? About large change in trade flows. The fact that right now, heaven forbid, who knows what happens with Taiwan, right? We had Vietnam in the 70s. The commitment to huge government spending. And he specifically, listen to what he did. So great. I love it when they actually talk honestly. He specifically mentions that ridiculous Inflation Reduction Act bill that was passed by Joe Biden. These are all inflationary. This looks more like the 70s to me, saying that the Fed was slow to raise rates. Says that they're smart right now to not raise rates any higher. Says that he's skeptical of this Goldilocks scenario and that recession is on its way. And Jason, I think this is why J.P. Morgan in their earnings reports today looks like they're anticipating a lot of rate cuts.
I think that could be, I think that's the plan, actually. While you were talking on the first segment, I was looking at the CPI numbers. And I think a lot of times the Fed knows, it's always a question, does the Fed, are they kind of incompetent and they're just doing the best they can, or are they corrupt and they're doing something on purpose? It's always the question. And I was looking when in April of 2021, that was the first time we had the really elevated inflation of 4.2. That's when it started. And Joe, I've been adding up the years together to see if there's any movement, because year over year is one, but how about several years? And if you add up from April 21, 22, and 23, and you add up each month at a time, inflation's done nothing. It's stayed, every month has stayed the same. It's just been here at this level, 17.4 for April, 17.6, 17.5, 17.1, 17.3, 17.3, 17.1. It's just staying. It seems very controlled to me, Joe. And if one of the plays that the Fed has to try to reset the state of the economy is to try to inflate your way out. But how do you do that and make it look like it's somebody else's fault, right, Joe? And so, we had to lower these rates because markets were going to explode, and the inflation's controllable now. 3% ain't bad, right, Joe? But sure looks like this is a very, very well orchestrated inflationary cycle we're being put into on purpose, Joe.
The 3 years, and that was the Fed's 3-year number. So you might as well
the year-over-year CPI, year-over-year CPI for 21, 22, and 23.
Add those 3 years together, and then miraculously they all add up to about 17%.
A little over 17.
Right? Of course, all you do, just double it, and that's what you got, the real number. In 3 years, they wiped out 30% of your power. One of the other things we saw in inflation, wow, and I warned you about this one, the huge surge in insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, State Farm. In California, starting right now, 21% increase in automobile insurance, 20% increase in homeowners insurance. 20%! I mean, and these are big bills. Let's face it, these aren't small little numbers. 20% on $20, okay, that's doable. But 20% on 500, 1,000, 1,500, home insurance, California, who knows, $1,500, I mean, whatever it may be. I mean, you're talking a much bigger number for a lot of people. It has been decimating in the inflation numbers. And to that point, Hertz says they're getting rid of all of their electric cars. No, you're no longer going to be allowed to rent an electric car. And Jason, they just simply said they're more expensive. It costs too much. And specifically saying accidents and insurance on the electric car, it's not worth it. We're getting rid of them all.
Yeah, I just saw the local news a couple days ago. Hey, there's in the middle of suburban America here in Colorado. I forget down in one of the Denver suburbs. The house caught on fire. The electric car, both electric cars just caught the house on fire, blew up in the garage. I guess the fire department now has a special electric vehicle fire blankets that they throw over the car now because they can't physically put water on it or something. It's so I was like, oh.
You know what? You can't put those fires out.
Yeah, how dangerous is that? And talk about insurance. I think the average person understands this, but just to say it, in your mortgage, if you do not have your home insured, that is grounds for a foreclosure. So if the insurance is going to keep going up and you become uninsurable, you will lose your house, Joe. And how much equity do a lot of people have if the housing prices stay up? Banks love equity, don't they?
$20 gold, $22.50, 20 or more, $22.40 at 800-951-0592. 951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. Is it the 70s? I mean, there's so many opinions, right? Is it a soft landing? Is it inflation with recession? Jamie Dimon saying inflation with recession. I mean, those are big things. That's unheard of, right? But again, it's going to be but here's the problem. What about 2025, 26, 27, 28? It doesn't get better here. I mean, we cannot spend. Listen, next week, it's all going to be about the government shutdown. We got the same problem now with Johnson as they did with McCarthy. $16 billion. We're going to cut $16 billion. You just ran over $500 billion in debt on a good quarter. December is one of the good months. It was one of the worst Decembers ever when it comes to the budget. And don't forget, the Treasury's got to refinance this month. So my guess is the Treasury's probably going to have to borrow a little more money than was expected because of this larger debt. And speaking of debt, according to Lending Tree, this is Lending Tree. I hope they're wrong, but why would they be? 29.6% of residents in the nation's 100 largest metro areas, so where everybody lives, 29.6% were behind on at least one debt payment in the third quarter of 2023. Okay, so we know which way that's going, by the way. 27.3% had a serious delinquency. That's more than 1 in 4. What's a serious delinquency? You're more than 90 days, right? So you're either at collections already, right, or you're going to collections. More than a quarter, 26.2%, had a debt in collections in 2023. We don't hear that number anywhere, right? We don't hear that number anywhere. Oh, look at the jobs, right? Of course, all these jobs are part-time jobs. Lending Tree CEO said a huge number of people are behind on their debt payments. And, of course, obviously we know late debt payments, right? That just destroys you. More than a third of millennials, by the way, millennials, 27 to 42. Okay, these are full-blown adults, right? 27 to 42. 36.7% of them had at least one delinquent account last year. Gen Z, 18 to 26. 36.2%. Jason, people from 18 to 42, over a third of all of them already have at least one delinquent account, and that was in 2023 alone.
I think delinquent accounts is going to be a louder drum beating as the rest of 2024 and then as we go, Joe. And how can we not have more delinquent accounts when everything costs more and people are not keeping up with the earnings part of it? And then we're seeing now, there are maybe the jobs aren't, maybe not everyone's being fired, but people are getting less and less hours. You make less money, you have to pay more. That's the simple math for delinquent accounts, and that's going to be on the business side and on the personal finance side, Joe.
Yeah, it really is hard when you look at jobs, and going back to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the rate of full-time jobs. Jason, they're just disappearing by hundreds of thousands. And so that's the first set of data. When we look at jobs, right, the jobs data doesn't match 2024 is going to be a terrible year. I was off yesterday, but guess what? Layoffs weren't bad. Right? Layoffs, it wasn't a bad number. The government's jobs number, they're not terrible. I mean, once they get revised, they don't look so good, but they're not terrible. But now it starts to make sense, doesn't it? Because the Bureau of Labor Statistics say there's lots of part-time jobs. People have lots of them. A lot of people have multiple part-time jobs. But here's the reality behind the scenes, because you can't tell. Right? You look here in Arizona, right? You go into a neighborhood in Arizona, all the houses look the same. Right? And you're like, oh, this is a nice neighborhood. But you don't see what's behind the door. And what Lending Tree is telling us, here's what's behind the door. People can't make all their debt payments, Jason. It's just that simple. That's what's behind the door.
Yep. Yeah. Can't make the debt payments. And you know, when you can't make the debt payments, then you start to lose things, right? you don't pay your mortgage, you lose your house. You don't make your car payment, you lose your car. So yeah, unfortunately, you have to buy food and you have to have energy, and then housing is right there. But yeah, Joe, we're going to see this. A lot of people are selling, right, Joe? There's a lot of people selling, and we're here. We're Patriot Trading Group. We've been doing a lot of buying, so we see it. We see it right here first and foremost. And you got to pay those bills, right, Joe? You got to pay the bills. It's how the poor people of the world, the working class, end up getting fleeced by the very wealthy people in Washington, D.C. is because they allow this to happen, Joe. They allow this inflation. They allowed the Fed to do this.
And then, of course, last but not least, healthcare costs.
Oh, boy.
Skyrocketing again. I can tell you right now, at least for my wife and I, you're a small business. All you small business owners know what I'm talking about. It is ridiculous what we're paying for healthcare. And now people are like, you know what? I just can't afford it. It's either put food on the table or have health insurance. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back. Final segment of the week coming up. Eight 800-951-0592. Big day in the precious metals markets, rallying on deficit news, blowout deficits at the federal level, bank earnings, the bankers loading up on loan loss reserves, taking massive losses. All the big banks, too, they got hit with big hits on trying to refund the FDIC after Silicon Valley. Right? What happens when we get more, right? They're going to be able to continually refund it. We'll have to wait and see on that. And then anyone's guess as to what's going to happen. You know, the airstrikes in Yemen. Yemen now apparently, and I don't know, but they're claiming they have now attacked U.S. bases in Iraq. Are we going to see an expansion of what's happening there in the Middle East? Who knows? Jason, so many factors, but the one thing that is for certain, it's one thing when gas prices go up, right? Because we know, okay, they'll go, but they'll come back down. You know, they'll never go back to where they were, but, you know, they go up, they go down. Health insurance doesn't go down. Car insurance, home insurance, they don't go down, right? You're more. Now think about this. The increase in home insurance, yeah, the mortgage rates are falling a little bit. But if you got to pay more for homeowners insurance, right, you end up, right, Jason, it's insanity what's happening around. I think Jamie Dimon, I agree with him. I think he's right. This is something that we really haven't seen, and this is that box, right? They're damned if they do as far as do you raise rates, damned if you don't, right? Do you lower rates, right? There is no good outcome here. I think gold and silver are set up here. Great buy opportunity today. We're essentially throwing away a $40 gold move for you today. $20 liberties. 1 through 19. $2,250. Buy 20 or more, $2,240 as gold now just below an all-time record high here at 800-951-0592. And Jason, I think, you know, these are going to be things, unfortunately, for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. there's something, a major thing almost every week. Next week, it's government shutdown. Then it's the Treasury Department. Then it's another government shutdown, right? I mean, there's so much Fed meeting, right? There's so much on the table coming up. I think it's going to, this volatility, I think is going to start picking up.
Yeah, and what you're saying about healthcare insurance and healthcare, just the cost of healthcare, especially health insurance, it's for the most part, it's a pool. So as you're saying, Joe, if expenses are too high and people just stop paying health insurance, that means everybody else in the pool has to pay more. So this is not just an inflation and bad market situation. This is when people can't pay for health insurance and drop out of the pool, everybody else gets to pay more because the health insurance company doesn't want to lose money either. Companies, private companies especially, they don't lose money. They charge it to the customer. So yeah, Joe, the less people that can afford it, the higher the cost for everyone that's still in the pool.
Yeah, and that also, hospitals get affected by this. It's a bad spiral when it comes to that. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're going to come back with the Half Empty Cup.